Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. I am your host, Nick. You are listening to episode 118 of Talking Blue. We are here today, of course, to recap the Dodgers and the Royals series, which wrapped up last night, Wednesday night. The Dodgers get the sweep of the Royals, exactly what the doctor ordered. We know the Dodgers have been struggling the last 2 weeks. You could even go back to time periods in July. They've been struggling for that long. So you get a little bit of the softer part of this, difficult schedule that they're in the midst of playing, and they took advantage of it, and they sweep the Royals, exactly what you wanted to see. All right. So, as always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X as well. All right, so a lot of good things in the series, obviously, considering that it was a sweep. The Dodgers didn't necessarily play amazing, but the offense did enough. 3 comeback wins. The Royals scored first in every game. Some good pitching performances. We got to see Tarik Skubal in Dodger Stadium for the first time. Blake Snell came off the IL. Eric Lauer pitched pretty well as well on Wednesday. We also got to see Mookie Betts play really well at home. A couple big home runs, a walk-off for Max Muncy. There was a ton of stuff that happened. Like I said, Dodgers didn't necessarily play great. They will have to clean up a couple of things going up against the Brewers, which will actually begin tonight, a 4-game set against the Brewers. We'll get to that later on. But as always, let's start with some injury roster stuff, and then we'll get to the 3 games. Not a ton of new updates, but first off, Dalton Rushing, working through light baseball activities. He will try to come back as a hitter. All right. Right now, the quotes have been that they don't really expect the Dodgers, don't really expect to have some kind of UCL repair, Tommy John surgery. I don't know how much I believe this, I'll be honest. Anytime that you see a guy has a torn UCL, whether they're a pitcher or a hitter, there is really no way to go about it other than get the thing repaired. So I'm not really sure how, they could go about this. I mean, again, if they want to try to rehab it so he could come back and be some kind of bench bat, they do have obviously Fiducia and Rushing as the catchers right now. They could do that and then have him get the surgery in the offseason. That isn't a possibility. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. I don't really believe that he's just going to come back and never get surgery. I don't really see how that could be a possibility. But that is what is being reported right now. Tyler Glasnow came out of his last rehab scheduled for a 4-inning rehab the next time he goes out, which I believe will be later this weekend, I want to say. Will Klein, him and Brock Stewart are also in the same camp to me as Rushing. Kind of confusing. Not really sure. I really think until it just comes out, what will sometime in September is when we're really going to get real concrete news. But Will Klein hoping to take the next steps in a throwing program this week. It's said that he's had I don't know if it's bone chips or elbow issues. So I would imagine he needs some kind of procedure. So I don't know how he could return, but it is possible he could rehab it. Brock Stewart could be facing hitters this week. Stewart is actually possible to come back, I believe. I do think Stewart can come back and pitch this year. I'm not sure about Will Klein. I'm not sure. I'm sure. I feel like at some point we're going to get a tweet from somebody that Will Klein's season is done. But Brock Stewart, because it is more of a shoulder issue that he's dealt with before, as long as it's just, it's not like Brock Stewart of, he normally has an injury and then it takes him a long time. And last year he had the same thing where he had a shoulder issue and then just was never able to come back. Hopefully it's not the same case, but, I'll be honest. In my mind, I'm not even sure if I'm expecting those guys back. Will Klein, the updates have been kind of weird. Stewart is literally never healthy. So, I don't know if I'm expecting those guys back, but I do think Stewart, there is a possibility he will be back and be a part of the postseason bullpen. Shohei Ohtani, there's not really much of an update with him so far. The last time we got news was him throwing a flat ground or whatever, just regular playing catch in Arizona. So at some point, I think he will have to get on the mound and throw some bullpens, but we haven't really got anything on that yet. Probably will get some info throughout this Brewer series. Will Smith taking BP on the field and running through baseball activities. So still like slowly has been good updates on Will, but still like waiting for that, going on a rehab soon and all that stuff. I still expect him to come back at some time in September. It just might not be until like a full month from now, like September 15th or something like that. And then the last guy, Blake Trinan, haven't got an update on him in a long time. He is about to throw his second live BP, so face hitters for the second time, and should be on a rehab assignment soon. I would imagine he actually rejoins the team probably around September 1st, so that would be pretty nice. So those are all the injury updates, and there is one more on Freddie Freeman. I'll talk about him later. He had that scary spill into the opposing team's dugout last night, but didn't really seem like anything has come of it. He seems fine, but technically he's having like body soreness is what he said. Anyways, let's go to Game 1, Monday night, August 10th. Tarik Skubal is on the mound versus the other left-hander, Noah Cameron, of the Kansas City Royals. We skip ahead to the top of the first inning. Jack Caglione gets the Royals on the board first off of Skubal. An RBI single up the middle makes it 1-0 Kansas City. Go ahead to the third inning. It's that same guy, Jack Caglione. He homers this time off of Skubal to right field to make it a 3-0 game. So right away, you're thinking, here the Royals are in town. We could finally get some wins on the scoreboard, and you're down 3-0 against one of the worst teams in baseball with your now new ace Tarik Skubal on the mound. But the Dodgers would claw back like I talked about. Shohei Ohtani, an RBI double in the third inning, makes it a 3-1 game. Right after that, Freddie Freeman, an RBI single, brings in Shohei to make it 3-2. Then in the bottom of the sixth, this is actually one of the bigger hits of the year, or maybe I should say of the second half, for Max Muncy. He doubles into right field, down 3-2 to make it a 5-3 game. Bases clearing double. Dodgers go up 5-3, like I said. Right after that, though, back and forth game, the Royals tie the game thanks to an RBI two-run home run from Kyle Isbell, the 9-hitter. Two-run shot makes it 5-5. That was off of Jack Dreyer. But thankfully, Freddie Freeman is employed by the Dodgers, and he is clutch. An RBI single in the seventh inning brings in, who is it that scored on that? Shohei Ohtani scores to make it 6-5, and the Dodgers actually hold on in those final couple innings. The bullpen finally did its job, and they win by a score of 6-5. Tarik Skubal goes 5 innings pitched. Alex Vesia goes 1. Jack Dreyer goes 1. He gave up that 2-run homer. And then Tanner Scott had a clean 8th inning. And then Edwin Diaz, shout out to him, he gets the save. Pitched pretty well. Three quick outs, and the Dodgers get the win to open up Game 1. So we'll start with Skubal, and then I'll just kind of talk about the flow of this game because it was kind of like a back-and-forth game, and a pretty good game overall. So Tarik Skubal, let me give you his final line. Like I said, this was, it was exciting to see him pitch at Dodger Stadium. A lot of excitement around that. He goes 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. He allowed the 1 home run to Caglione. Second time that he gets the no decision. I think he got the loss in his first start against the Cubs, although he pitched pretty well. Not a bad start from Skubal by any means. Kind of similar like final outcome to his first start in the Cubs, that it wasn't like dominant Tarik Skubal, but it wasn't disappointing start, but it was kind of the opposite of his first start in Chicago. Last start, he was really good early on, like you saw early on in that first game against the Cubs. The command, the strike throwing, the swing and miss, like he looked locked in early on, other than really just getting jumped by a solo home run by Dansby Swanson. This game was a little bit of the opposite because to start the game, he did not have the best command. You could see with his fastball and his sinker, he didn't really have the best command overall. Kind of took him a little bit to, feel comfortable early on in the game. And then in those middle innings, 3rd, 4th, 5th inning is when he looked a lot better, was able to get some swing and miss. And similar, again, to his last start, it was that 6th inning in Chicago where he had a little bit of a longer inning. His pitch count was much in order throughout the entire game, like low pitch count. Kind of had a longer inning in the 6th inning that made things a little bit more stressful, and he was able to just get through the 6 innings. Same thing here. He had low pitch count throughout the game, but then in that final 5th inning, he got through it scoreless, but did give up some base runners, a walk, a couple hits, and had to pitch out of some traffic, and that jumped his pitch count up a little bit, so he wasn't able to pitch deeper into the game. So the last time I talked about Skubal, when we got to see him pitch for the first time, I talked about how his velo was increased on his four-seamer and his sinker. On the year, they both averaged 96.7, and then they were both up in that first game, averaging over 97. The velo did come back down a little bit in this game. Now, the fastball four-seamer velo is continued to be up, averaging 97.4, but the sinker was back down to more 96.7 to be exact. So, wasn't as, juiced up, I guess I would say, but like I said, he still looked pretty solid overall. It's one of those guys that, like, when you see a pitcher this good, someone who reminds you of, like, Clayton Kershaw or just those upper echelon elite pitchers, you see Skubal the last two starts hasn't really had, like, the best command in both starts or the overwhelming strikeout stuff. He's had 13 and 14 whiffs, I believe, in each game. So hasn't had like overpowering swing and miss stuff. And he still gets through both games, gave the team a chance to win, like pitched really good. I believe that, his next start out, which will actually be this weekend against the Brewers, which is massive, so he gets to pitch in that big series. Who knows how the series will go. The fact that he goes on Sunday could mean that he'll be pitching in a deciding series potential, winning deciding series. But I think that he's like a couple clicks away from giving us a dominant start. Like, he had the good command in his first outing. He just gave up some hits and wasn't able to, like, finish off a great outing necessarily. Was a little bit unlucky as well in that first game. And then this game kind of didn't get settled in right away. Before he got settled in, really, he gave up 3 earned runs and, made a mistake to Caglione left on left. And, I think that we're going to see that really, really dominant Skubal outing soon when the command is all the way there and then the swing and miss as well. So, one thing, again, I've been learning about Skubal because, now I'm getting to see him pitch every single day. His fastball upstairs is a really good pitch for him. I'm kind of learning how he pitches, like being a left-handed hitter, facing a lot of righties. I think that he likes to go sinker into righties a lot, kind of like a comeback sinker. And then when he uses the four-seamer, he usually goes upstairs with that pitch. And then obviously the changeup's going to be down to both lefties and righties. He will throw that a good amount to lefties as well, which is interesting. He goes first pitch slider to right-handers a lot too. So I'm just learning how he kind of maneuvers hitters, and he looks. There's no like disappointment or anything. It's just he hasn't had that dominant start yet. But there's no doubt in my mind that he's probably going to put it all together this weekend against the Brewers. I wouldn't be shocked. I think that'll be like his coming out, first memorable moment with the Dodgers for sure. So, I wish we had more to talk about with Skubal, but that's pretty much it. The ebbs and flows of this game, it was really positive to see the Dodgers fight back into this game, especially like falling down multiple times. Obviously, like you had the Skubal, high hopes for a Skubal start, you fall down 3-0. Then you actually come back and tie the game, and then you give up the lead again with the bullpen, and you're thinking, here we go again. But a really nice rally in that third inning, like I said, with the Ohtani double to get them on the board, Freddie Freeman RBI single. Freducia actually had a leadoff double. Shout out to Hunter Freducia, because I was interested to see with the acquisitions of him and Ben Rortvedt. Rortvedt was the guy who played a lot last August and September and became like very popular in the clubhouse and trusted throughout the pitching staff. And there's a really good number out there that's like the Dodgers are 14-6 in games that Rortvedt catches or something similar like that. Like, he really knows how to handle the pitching staff. So I was assuming that maybe Rortvedt would be the starter and Freducia would be more of the backup. It has seemed like Freducia has gotten more of the playing time. It's going to be very even because they're both left-handed hitters. So it really has nothing to do with, splits or anything like that. It's really just going to be like even playing time. But Freducia does have a little bit more in the bat than Rortvedt, I believe. And so the Dodgers have seemed to play him a little bit more. And he's actually had some pretty decent at-bats. He had a leadoff double in that inning, followed by another Shohei double, the Freddie single. Skubal was able to keep it to a one-run game to get through 5 innings pitched. Then later in the game, Miguel Rojas had a double. And then Kyle Tucker was actually pinch hitting for Teoscar. Tucker did get the start in that game. So I thought that was interesting. Dave Roberts made some interesting comments a few days ago about, I don't know the verbatim of exactly what he said, but it was basically like, we are done with the letting veterans try to get into a comfortable position, allowing playing time. Like, at this point, it's go time. That's pretty much what he said. And, he said, like, we're a wild card team at this point. Like, kind of being honest with, the situation that they've been in since they've kind of began to play bad the last few weeks. And basically just giving that adage of, like, it's time to turn it on. We don't really care about, hey, guys are struggling and we're trying to give them time to get back into the swing of things. No, we're trying to win games from here on out. So I found it interesting that Tucker didn't get the start, and then they pinch hit him for Teoscar, who's also been struggling. It was the correct move. Or a couple months ago, you probably say, well, I'll let Teoscar try to, come up with a big moment here. I believe in him, and it could go a long way. No. You look at the numbers in front of you and you say, this is the right move. So they actually intentionally walked Kyle Tucker anyways. Bases loaded, 2 outs, Max Muncy at the plate, fell down to 2 strikes, battled, and then he obviously, hit that double down the right field line. Big hit to put the Dodgers back up. And you think, here we go, we got all the momentum. Jack Dreyer comes into the game. He gives up a 2-run shot to Kyle Isbell, of all people. If you don't know who that is, he's a defensive center fielder for the Royals, left-handed hitter who plays good defense but cannot hit. He has a 468 OPS versus left-handed pitching this year. He hit a home run off of Jack Dreyer, who's been one of the better Dodger relievers as of late. So that was pretty just like shocking that was, that happened. But Freddie Freeman comes up with the massive RBI single in the 7th. And then shout out to Edwin Diaz. The Dodgers bullpen has been a little bit taxed as of late. Starters haven't been going as deep as they've been throughout the regular season, and there hasn't been as many off days lately. Dodgers are about to play a 4-game set this weekend, so Dave Roberts is trying to obviously get Edwin Diaz back into form because they need Edwin Diaz, and so they bring in Scott for the 8th. They go to Edwin Diaz in the 9th. And, things started a couple days ago to get officially loud with Diaz. He came back from the IL, gave up 2 blown saves over the weekend to the Diamondbacks. So all eyes are on you, like, brother, you better not blow this save or things are going to get bad. And he had a very easy 1-2-3 9th. I think he got a strikeout, a fly out, and then a ground out. The velocity looked good. Slider looked a little bit better. Didn't throw a ton of great sliders, but he did get a strikeout on to a left-handed hitter on a strikeout. Got it in a good spot. Velocity looked good. Like, was more in the strike zone. So I kind of told you guys a lot about Diaz's struggles over the weekend, about the fastball and then the slider getting crushed, the poor command. So it was a great spot for him to, hopefully that we can look back and he'll take off from that point on. But that's all the thoughts on that Game 1. It was a pretty good back and forth game, and Game 2 was actually very similar. So let's go to Game 2. Tuesday night, Blake Snell makes his season return, first time pitching since his only game this year, which was early May, I believe, against the Braves when he went like 3 innings and they went back on the IL. He takes on Michael Wacha of the Royals, so that's a pretty good pitching matchup. Dodgers actually get on the board first, so I was incorrect. The Dodgers did get on the board first in Game 2. It still was a comeback win, but the Royals didn't get on the board first in all 3 games. Mookie gets on the board first with a solo home run, his 14th home run of the year, 1-0 Dodgers. Later on in the 4th inning, the Royals would tie the game. This was off of Blake Snell. RBI sac fly from Salvador Perez makes it 1-1. And it was actually 1-1 all the way until the 7th inning. Michael Wacha pitched very good, kept the Dodgers off balance. Snell dominated the Royals, 10 strikeouts, ton of swing and miss. He looked great. We'll get to him. All the way to the 7th inning, Michael Wacha is actually still in the game. And an RBI single from Alex Call, who got the start in this game as well, down the right field line to make it a 2-1 game. Right after that, Teoscar Hernandez, he actually pinch hits. I don't know why I'm misremembering. I thought he pinched hit for Rortvedt. I think he did. He doubles into left field to make it a 3-1 game. So once again, Dodgers jump out and take the lead. But very similar to the night before, now Evan Phillips comes into the game into the 8th inning. Gave up a couple base runners. Jack Caglione, an RBI single into left field, makes it a 3-2 game. Right after that, Salvador Perez, a single into left, ties the game. So right away, the lead is given back up. And then right after that, this was a really odd play. Carter Jensen lines out to center field. Pages makes the catch. Jack Caglione, I think, was on second base. He tags up and goes to third. Pages on the transfer, so catching the ball, transferring to his throwing hand, bobbles the ball, and it goes all the way to the track, and then Caglione comes all the way around to score. So what should have been 2 outs, the tying run is on third, now turns into 2 outs, and the go-ahead run, or excuse me, it should have been the go-ahead run on third. The go-ahead run scores on a sac fly. So a weird error accredited to Andy Paez. Kind of can kill him because that shouldn't happen, but kind of funky because you never see something like that. So the Royals go ahead. So right away you're thinking, you got to be kidding me. But we go ahead to the bottom of the 8th. Dodgers do get some base runners, and just like the Max Muncy at-bat the night before, with 2 outs, Mookie Betts, his third hit of the game ties the game with a single into right field to make it a 4-4 game. We'll talk about Mookie later on. We skip ahead. Dodgers weren't able to score in the 9th. Go to the 10th inning in the top of the 10th. They actually have Seth Halverson, who I'll talk about, came up from OKC, claimed off of, or I don't know if it was waivers or DFA'd by the Rockies earlier this year, but he's been down in OKC for a while, flamethrower. Dodgers' pen has obviously been taxed, so he has no choice but to make his debut in the 10th inning. He does his job, though, to get out of the 10th inning without allowing the ghost runner to come across to score. So the Dodgers go into the 10th, tie game, bases loaded, 1 out, Max Muncy, RBI walk-off single to win the game. Dodgers win by a score of 5-4, and they get the series win, of course, and will go for the sweep Wednesday night. All right, so Blake Snell goes 6 innings pitched. Alex Vesia for 1. Evan Phillips goes 1/3 of an inning. He only got 1 out. Same thing to Jack Dreyer. He got credited with the blown save, but obviously the Dodgers were able to still win the game. Jack Dreyer came in and saved Evan Phillips for 2/3, and then Edgardo Henriquez pitched the 9th for 1, and then Seth Halverson pitched the 10th, 1 innings pitched. He actually got the win in the game, and then he got optioned back down to OKC after the game, and they brought up Landon Knack. I would imagine that is because the bullpen was taxed, and they needed somebody to eat innings. I think Seth Halverson will see him back at some point, especially with how taxed the Dodgers' pen is right now. Wouldn't be surprised if I'd see him even activated. I guess you can't activate him right away. You got to wait a few days, so maybe sometime next week he'll be brought back up. But let's talk about Blake Snell, just like we did with Tarik Skubal before we get to anything else. Snell was fantastic in his season debut, and I have a really good feeling that things are going to go very similar to how they did last August when Blake Snell returned and just immediately came off the IL and dominated for 2 months to going into the postseason and pitched great. His first start was actually last year in Tampa against his former team, the Rays. Did give up a couple Little League home runs in that start, but dominated with the swing and miss, and it just catapulted him to have a dominant stretch throughout the final 2 months of the season. But Blake Snell, 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. 10 strikeouts in his season return. Absolutely carved up the Kansas City Royals. He looked fantastic. I mean, my God, was it exciting and was it fun to watch him pitch. He looked electric. He looked sharp with his command, and he looked confident. I mean, I even saw him in his post-game conference, and he was talking about, he was just saying things like, I'm good, and I know when I'm doing this, I know that I'm going to get hitters out. Dave Roberts had a comment saying this was, before the game, this was the healthiest he's looked before he even took the mound. This is the healthiest he's looked in a Dodger uniform. Okay, he was dominant and efficient, which is what's exciting. Okay, so Snell, 10 strikeouts, and he did it all on 84 pitches. 10 strikeouts, 15 whiffs, all on 84 pitches. He was on a pitch count limit, was only expected, it was kind of hopeful that they could get him through 5 innings pitch. He was so dominant and so efficient, he ends up getting through 6 innings pitch, and he was only on 84 pitches. If he was on a regular pitch count, wasn't coming back from injury, probably goes 7 innings pitched, gets more than 10 strikeouts, more than 15 whiffs, and has a dominant outing even more so. All right, so the thing that stood out to me right away was 2 things. His fastball velo and then his curveball looked really dominant. So when he came back last August, he averaged 95.1 miles an hour on his four-seam fastball through August, September, and into the postseason. So I remember throughout last year, the velocity looked pretty good. He wasn't throwing crazy hard, similar to how he looked today or Tuesday night. Was similar to how he looked in the postseason, sitting 96, touching 97, 98, but he averaged 95 basically. In this start, he averaged 96.2, so the velo was actually up a little bit from where he was at a year ago. So that's very exciting. He hit 98 multiple times throughout this game. And the heater looked explosive, but again, most importantly, sharp. He was burning the edge of each part of the plate, striking out lefties, freezing hitters with the four-seamer, just placed it perfectly, which is not something you see a lot in a guy's first start. You might see the velo down a little bit. Sometimes you might even see the velo up a little bit because the guy's a little bit, excited, but it's a little bit all over the place. His mechanics are all over the place. Snell just came right off the IL and looked perfectly in sync. The velo, the release point, the command, everything. And the fastball was the most, exciting part to me because it was so perfectly placed so many times. The command with the fastball was precise. His curveball, like I said, was also part of the story. It had a 63% chase rate and a 50% whiff rate in this game. So dominant stuff with the curveball. It was noticeable how good and how nasty his curveball looked. And if you actually look at some metrics plus stuff, or stuff plus, it would suggest that it's the best curveball he's had in a little bit. It was breaking a lot. Basically all night he was getting ugly-looking swings on curveballs in the dirt, and then he was freezing hitters with that fastball. It almost looked like they were surprised how good his stuff looked, okay? And, of course, we know that he's got the great changeup. That's something I learned a lot about Snell watching him pitch last year. 78% chase rate on his changeup in this game. Looked completely locked in. The fastball command was great to both-handedness, both lefties and righties. The curveball was looking great to a lot of lefties, actually, which last year, watching him a lot, he mostly was to right-handed hitters, fastball, changeup, occasional curveball, and then to lefties, fastball, slider with occasional curveball. He was mixing it up both sides. If we even see his slider look a lot like it did last year, our arsenal looks completely dominant. Because last year I feel like Snell, the changeup looked a lot better than it has throughout his career, and it's because it seemed like something that was going to do him well for his career to add this super nasty changeup. In the past, when you think about Snell, you always thought about the velo and then the great curveball slider combo. So it seemed like those pitches took a little bit of a step back last year with how good his changeup is. If he can even bring those pitches back into the fold a little bit, not that they went away, but kind of reminiscent of how dominant he was with the Rays back in the day. Filthy stuff, super exciting. The swing and miss. Snell is a swing and miss king. He's the guy who just doesn't matter how much he pitches, 4 innings, 7 innings, he's going to rack up the swing and miss and the strikeouts, and even coming back in his first start. Very exciting. He was dominant. So this game was very similar to the night before. The offense showed a lot of fight. Bullpen struggled at times to keep the lead. The offense was held pretty quietly against Waka early on. Alex called Teoscar Hernandez with some big hits, big doubles in the 7th inning to take the lead and add some insurance. But once again, the bullpen showed some cracks, very similar the night before with Jack Dreyer. Evan Phillips just couldn't stop the bleeding. He comes in, walk, single, in a tie game that quick. Then that error from Andy Paz dropping the ball on the transfer allows the go-ahead run to come all the way across. Like I said, you can't kill Andy Paz for that, but my God, you got to be kidding me. You're just thinking oh my God, we're just trying to get things going, and it can't fully happen. But credit to Mookie Betts, the game-tying single in the 9th. That was great. And then shout out to Seth Halverson, who came off the IL, came up from OKC. Dodgers, kind of one of those trying to create a dumpster dive. Seth Halverson has been up with the Rockies before, throws 100 miles an hour, but has never really been that successful. Dodgers get him into their farm, into the minor leagues, try to see if they could fix up his pitch mix and tweak some stuff and find a dominant reliever in there. If you throw 100 miles an hour, no reason that you can't, become a really good reliever, even in this day and age of really good velo. So they switched some things up in the minor leagues. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a chance to come back up. But shout out to him because he threw strikes and was able to induce some weak contact and get out of that inning. And then Max Muncy, of course, with the bases loaded, ends it. Pretty great game. Pretty good comeback game. I wanted to talk about a couple things with the Dodgers challenging pitches. That was something that became prevalent to me in this series. And I haven't talked a ton about this throughout the year. Obviously, it's the first year of challenging pitches. It's been something to, interesting to watch how the Dodgers go about it. I always felt like they were one of the cautious teams. I think that a lot of teams have tried to figure out what's their approach with the challenge system. Do we save the challenges for later in the game? You don't really try to be too aggressive with it, and later in the game when you need it, you use it. That, most teams, I think, take that approach, but it does make sense that if you wait too long to use your challenges and you basically say to yourselves, well, keep it later in the game. Well, what if it's early on in the game? You could still lose the game. Bases loaded in the third inning. You're on the mound. Umpire calls strike 3. He calls it ball 4. You don't challenge it because it's early on in the game. That run comes in the score. What if you lose by 1 run later in the game? You could have overturned that call. So I don't think it's as simple as just we save it later in the game. But the Dodgers, I think that is part of their philosophy. And plus, they do have so many veteran guys like Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. Like, those guys just did not come up with this system. So it's really like against their nature to challenge a lot of pitch calls, I feel like. So in my mind, they don't challenge a lot of pitches. Now, there are some guys, and you can actually look at the numbers that kind of backs this up. So, this new challenging system has really added a second level or a next level of thinking to the game for the pitchers, for the catchers, definitely, and for the hitters. And not only do you have to, in real time, react to the call and think to yourself, that was the wrong call, I need to challenge, because you got to do it right away. That's the rule. You can't sit there and think about it. It has to be instant. It has to be obvious. And so there's that factor. But then you also have to have the wherewithal about where you're at in the game, where you're at in the count, where you're at in the inning, and does it make sense here and there? And all of that has to be taken into account. Like, is it a smart challenge? And so it adds a lot of pressure for the hitters and the catchers to take all of that into consideration, because obviously if you get it wrong, you lose it. Now, you do get 1 added on, I believe, in extra innings, but you got to be smart about that, because if you burn two challenges earlier in the game on challenges that were bad, you lose them. So it adds this extra dynamic thinking man's part of the game. But Monday night, Andy Paez, he burned the Dodgers' first challenge in the third inning on an 0-1 pitch that was confirmed a strike. He challenged it thinking it was a ball. It was obviously a strike, so they burned that first challenge in the third inning. Then an inning later, Miguel Rojas also challenged a 1-0 pitch that was confirmed a strike, and the Dodgers, just like that in the fourth inning, are out of challenges. And it was almost a huge factor in potentially losing the game, because there was multiple at-bats later in the game, both on the pitching side and at the plate. Or on the mound, I should say, both offensively and defensively, where the Dodgers could have challenged a wrong call, but obviously they had none left. So that is that's the problem with challenging earlier in the game, especially when it's like, it really, like, early in the count like that doesn't make a lot of sense unless it's obvious, unless it's very obvious. But like an 0-1 pitch, does it really make a lot of sense in the fourth inning to challenge? Maybe if it would have rung you up, that makes sense, because there is a lot of numbers that you can look at that if you're able to, challenge what would have been strike 3 and keep the at-bat prolonged or flip the count in your favor, that does a lot in you potentially getting on base or not getting on base. Tuesday night, both catchers, Rortvedt and Fiducia, challenged a few times throughout the night, and they were both really good challenges, and they were successful. Especially one in particular, Seth Halverson on the mound in the 10th inning, 2 outs. The go-ahead run was on third base. Salvador Perez was at the plate. The first pitch of the at-bat was called a ball. It kind of nicked the corner of the strike zone. Fiducia challenges. It gets overturned. Gets Halverson ahead in the count. So that challenge obviously went a long way in being successful for the Dodgers in that time. But the Dodgers are last in challenges attempted from the fielders, so from the catchers, which was surprising. I thought they were going to be pretty low in hitters challenging, hitters trying to challenge calls, but it's actually the catchers. So that shows that the catchers and obviously the pitchers, but pitchers don't really challenge. They're the last team at doing that. They are 11th in challenges attempted from the hitters. They are top 6 in successful challenges on the hitting side, so they are pretty successful as the hitters challenging. The best challenger on the team is Teoscar Hernandez. Funny enough, if you would have asked me before the season, I wouldn't have guessed that. But that actually lines up with my thinking, because I feel like every time I've seen Teoscar challenge, he always gets it right. Like, he doesn't do it that often, but it's like every time he gets a wrong call, he's like, oh, that was definitely wrong, and challenges and gets it right. So after that, it's Shohei and Tucker. Those are the other guys that are really good at challenging for the Dodgers. Andy Paz is by far the worst on the team, followed by Edman, Alex Call, and Miguel Rojas. Paz has by far the most challenges attempted at 25. The next closest is 14. So Paz challenging way too much. He was at 24 the night before last and then challenged again last night and was wrong. So it does seem like Dave Roberts, the Dodgers, got to put the red light on Paz. Like, dude, do not challenge unless it's late in the game and we have 2 left and it's obvious or egregious. Like, do not challenge because you are not good at this. And it's, it's one of those things that, like, baseball's an emotional game, and you could be at the plate and you see a pitch and you think it's way off and you emotionally are like, I'm challenging that. I don't want to strike out, blah, blah, blah. And it can be a little selfish at times. You got to think about the count. You got to think of the leverage and the situation and all that stuff. And it doesn't make sense to challenge. So just some interesting thoughts that I thought I would bring up about the whole challenge system. Let's go to Game 3. Dodgers going for the sweep. Eric Lauer on the mound versus another left-hander, Daniel Lynch. The Royals get on the board first in this game thanks to Josh Rojas, former Diamondback. Puts them up 1-0. Later on, though, in the second inning, Mookie Betts. We love to see this. His second home run of the series, back-to-back nights with a home run for him. His 15th of the year ties the game up at 1. Right after that, Salvador Perez, an RBI single, makes it a 2-1 game. But in the third inning, Shohei Ohtani puts the Dodgers on top with one swing, a 2-run shot. 3-2 Dodgers, a 2-run shot for Shohei Ohtani, his 27th of the year. Hunter Fiducia, who we talked about earlier, has been hitting pretty well for the Dodgers. His third home run of the year, first with the Dodgers, puts the Dodgers up 4-2. And the Dodgers actually win by a score of 4-2. Eric Lauer goes 6.1, and Landon Knack goes 2.2. That's right, Landon Knack gets the save. All right, he gets an 8-out save. And the Dodgers win. They complete the sweep. 3 wins in a row for the Dodgers is great. They get back on track, sweeping the Royals, and they do it in the third game by not using a ton of pitching, which is key going into this 4-game set this weekend. So let's talk about Eric Lauer because he was fantastic. This was probably his best start of the as a Dodger so far. So he goes 6.1, allows 4 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. All right, and the funny thing about Lauer, he had a dominant swing and miss performance. He had 19 whiffs on the night, which is a lot. That is impressive for any pitcher, especially Eric Lauer, who the most he had on the season previously was probably like 12 or something like that. 19 swings and misses against the Royals. 9 of them came on his four-seam fastball, and 6 were on his cutter. All right, he threw 112 pitches, the most by any Dodgers pitcher all season. So not only did he go deep into the game, throw a ton of pitches, get deep into the game for the bullpen to not have to cover a ton of outs, he was also dominant and struck out a lot of hitters, 6 strikeouts, and a lot of whiffs. So it was a great performance. Like I said, massive for the bullpen to pitch deep into that game with the 4-game set coming up against the Brewers. The Dodgers don't have an off day until a week from today. When they're off next Thursday. They will play 4 against the Brewers, go to Colorado for 3 next week, and then they're off Thursday before they go to Detroit, I think. So not a lot of days off. They needed someone to go deep, and Eric Lauer didn't just eat a lot of innings and give up a bunch of runs. He pitched great. So Eric Lauer, what a story he's kind of turned into. I've given these numbers all year, but they just keep getting better. So He had a 6.69 ERA with the Blue Jays. With the Dodgers, it is down to 3.48. A 3.48 ERA with the Dodgers. In 7 of his 11 starts with the Dodgers, he's gone at least 6 innings pitched and allowed just 3 earned runs or less. That's fantastic. So he's gone deep into games and he hasn't given up a ton of runs. All right, with the Blue Jays, in 36 and 1/3 innings pitched, he gave up 11 home runs. In double the amount of innings, 62 innings pitched, he's given up the same amount of home runs. His hard hit rate is down from 42.4% to 31.3% as a Blue Jay compared to the Dodgers. He's increased his ground ball rate from 24.8% to 35.4%, so more balls on the ground. Less walks as well. His walk rate has decreased from 10% down to 6%. All right, very interesting. So he hasn't necessarily, if you dive into the swing and miss and the whiff rates and stuff like that, he isn't getting like way more swing and miss. He's actually getting almost less swing and miss. But what he's done is decrease the walks, great. Keep the ball on the ground less, fantastic. Less hard hit balls, great. That is all accumulated into less home runs, a little bit less slug, less base runners as well, less traffic, less damage, all that stuff. And I've been really interested to see how has his pitch usage changed with the Dodgers as opposed to the Blue Jays. What have they done differently with him? Because he's the guy who goes four-seamer, cutter, changeup, curveball, and slider. So what he's done is less four-seam fastball, 5% to be exact, 45% usage with the Blue Jays, 40% with the Dodgers. A lot more cutters. So he threw 60% cutters with the Blue Jays, 25% with the Dodgers. And he's also increased more curveball and slider. Those pitches are up a little bit. So what they've basically done is take back the four-seamer usage, increase the cutter, and a little bit more breaking pitches like the curveball and the slider. And, it's interesting in this game that he had a lot of swing and miss, 9 on the four-seamer, and then 6 on his cutter. If you watch Eric Lauer, he's one of these guys that just pitches at the top part of the strike zone, even though he doesn't throw hard. So it's almost like an uncomfortable at bat because you're constantly trying to get on top of the baseball. So he's just living upstairs, four-seamer, cutter, and it's a fun watch. And it's not surprising to me as to why the cutter's been good. He threw a lot of cutters upstairs in this game, and it led to some swing and miss. The cutter's been great for him, and it's just amazing stuff from Lauer that he's become a massive part of this team. And I hope he gets to be a part of the bullpen in October, or a part of the team in general. I hope he gets to be validated, or whatever the term is, for how much he's meant for this team. But I find it interesting how they mixed up his pitch mix, and they basically turned a guy that was getting crushed with the Blue Jays into a soft contact king, keep the ball on the ground, less walks, go deep into games, all that kind of stuff. Great stuff, Eric Lauer. Let's talk about a couple individual guys before we get to the Brewers series coming up later tonight. Mookie Betts. I'm so excited for this. You guys know that basically all year I've enjoyed this season. It's been a pretty great season for the Dodgers. I think they got just as good a chance as they've had the last 2 years to win the World Series again and go deep into the postseason. And I think they're actually about to take off with this pitching staff getting healthy. But all season I've been wanting to have Mookie Betts and Kyle Tucker get hot. And so Mookie Betts, a big series for him. He goes 6 for 11 in the series with 4 extra base hits. On base 7 times. In his last 11 games, so this is the entire month of August, 289 batting average, a 341 on base, which is pretty great, 500 slug, which is nice, and 841 OPS. All right, that's basically what Mookie Betts did in 2024 throughout the entire season. If you go back to his last 21 games, so a much bigger sample size, all right, this goes back to his 2 home run game against the Phillies in late July. So 21 games, 282 average, a 317 on base, which is a little bit low, 474 slug, which is pretty good, 791 OPS, a 116 WRC plus. And I've said this a million times before, but Mookie Betts, the shortstop, the fantastic defender, does not need to be a 900 OPS player to be a good player. You play good defense at shortstop, which is a much harder position, which means positionally in terms of WAR and stuff like that, you're going to be more valuable. You play great defense and you're an above league average hitter, you can be a good shortstop. You can be, a lot of players in the league that get a lot of, get talked about a lot, who are exciting, Elly De La Cruz or Zach Neto and guys like that. A lot of people love those guys. You'd be surprised if you looked at their numbers. Not Elly De La Cruz this year. He's been much better. But, Willie Adames, guys like that in the past few years. You'd be surprised if you looked at their numbers and they would be like in the high 700s OPS, 116 WRC plus. It's not Bobby Witt Jr. or Gunnar Henderson a couple years ago or C.J. Abrams right now with the Nationals. It's not on that level, but it is a very good player. So we'll see if Mookie can keep it going. Last year in the month of August, he was fantastic. He's actually always been fantastic in the month of August in his career, so hopefully he can keep this going. The power, his swing looks great right now, getting the ball to the pull side. That's exciting. We'll see if he can continue this and get his numbers in a better spot. Kyle Tucker, all right, this isn't really positive, but still just kind of interesting. He still can't hit at home. Like, he came into the series off a hot road trip, excited to see if he could, get it going at home. but he goes 0 for 8 in the series. He did have a few walks, so he got on base a few times, but it's just amazing how on the road he has basically been Kyle Tucker, the real Kyle Tucker, and then at home he has been one of the worst players in baseball. So at home, he's hitting 200 with a 300 on base, a 287 slug. That is unbelievable. That is like Luis Arraez slug. With a 588 OPS. But on the road, he's hitting 275 with a 371 on base. Nice. 469 slug, which still isn't like amazing, but it's still pretty solid. 840 OPS. So on the road, he gets on base at a much higher clip and a little bit more pop. At home, he does not get on base and he hits for absolutely 0 slug. All right, his that OPS, that 588 OPS, is actually the 5th worst road OPS in baseball this year among all active players or qualified hitters. But his 840 road OPS is top 30 in baseball. So he's a top 30 hitter in the game on the road, but a bottom 5 hitter on the at home. Excuse me, that was a mouthful, but you know what I'm saying. He sucks at home and he's great on the road. I don't know why. It's very weird. But if you go back to the last few weeks, so since late July, his last 18 games, which is a pretty good sample size, 255 batting average, a 388 on base, which is great, a 509 slug, which is nice. Anytime you're slugging 500, that's fantastic. 897 OPS, 146 WRC plus. Those are the numbers I was anticipating from Tucker this year, like a 900 OPS and around 30 home runs, a 146 WRC plus. That's a pretty good sample size. So even with this struggle at home that we just saw, he's been great the last 20 games or so. OPS over 1,000 versus left-handed pitching in that time as well. He is going to face 2 lefties the next 2 nights against Shane Drowan and Robert Gasser. So hopefully he's in the lineup and hopefully he can get going at home. Come on, Tucker. Like, do something at home. And then the last thing, Shohei Ohtani, he went deep on Wednesday night. He's been getting hot as of late. His last 7 games, a 944 OPS. His last 15 games, a 1,119 OPS. 1119 OPS last 15 games. 3 home runs away from 30. It's definitely been I don't want to call it a down season, but it's not been the same compared to his last 2 seasons where he hit over 50 home runs. Like, Shohei might not even hit 40 home runs this year, but he is still one of the 5 best hitters in the game, and he is in a true dogfight with PCA to get that MVP award. So he's going to need to turn it on offensively and out-hit PCA down the stretch to get that award. 41 games left in the season. It's going to be a grind because he's having the exact same season as PCA, basically. PCA. So we'll see what happens with that. Would love to see Ohtani get hot. Last things before we get out of here, a massive 4-game set this week with the Brewers. Kicks off tonight. All right, the Dodgers are 1 game back of the Brewers for the best record in baseball. They already won 2 out of 3 against the Brewers earlier this May, and the Brewers are coming off getting swept against the Rockies this week. Against the Padres. Thank you, Padres. They swept the Brewers. So it'll be Roki Sasaki versus left-handed pitcher Shane Drowan tonight. He's been pretty good for the Brewers. Yoshinobu Yamamoto versus Robert Gasser Friday night, another lefty. This is the big one. Saturday night, it'll be Justin Robleski against Jacob Bizarowski, who has without question been the best pitcher in baseball this year. He is as dominant as it gets. That is going to be a tough task for the Dodgers, but we'll see. There has been some numbers out there lately that they've been struggling against four-seam fastballs. Mizorowski has the best fastball in the game, without question, other than maybe like Mason Miller. So it'll be very interesting to see that matchup. And then Sunday, this will be another big one, Tarik Skubal against Logan Henderson, young right-hander for the Brewers who's had a very good season for them. That could potentially be a big game for them because if let's say the Brewers have 1-2 and the Dodgers have 1-1, that'll be a big series, a big game for Skubal to get that win to even up the series, to split the series. So, this might be the biggest series of the year up until this point. The 2 best teams in baseball, at least 2 of the best. So, very exciting and very interested to see this series. So, as always, you guys know the drill from here. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was a great series. Hopefully the Dodgers can build on it. Plus, the Brewers have been struggling. Would love to see a 3 out of 4, or who knows, even better maybe. But I'll take 2 out of 2 sweep, or 2 out of 2 split. But I would love to see a 3 out of 4, get back to being the best record in baseball, and then, they could take advantage of a bad team next week in Colorado and all that stuff. But don't sleep on the Rockies. They're not that bad. Anyways, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will be back this weekend to recap the Dodgers, the Brewers 4-game set. Enjoy it, everybody. It's going to be some fun baseball. Thank you guys so much for listening.